If you ignore this, you will miss the greatest awakening of your lifetime. Not a small improvement. Not another self-help phase that fades in a month. An awakening, the kind that changes who is looking out through your eyes. And here is the strange part. It has already begun inside you. That quiet restlessness you have been feeling, the sense that the old routines, the old goals, and even the identity you spent decades building no longer fit. That is not decline. That is the first tremor of it. Most people read this feeling backward. They call it fatigue. They call it regret. They call it getting old. So they try to fix it with the old tools. Work harder, distract more, wait for some outside sign to tell them what to do, and nothing changes, because they are treating a spiritual signal as if it were a physical problem. There is a profound difference between living through a change and consciously stepping through one. The first happens to you. The second happens because of you. Almost everyone will spend this season reacting, trapped in memory, automated fear, and emotional exhaustion. But a small number of people will recognize what is really happening and walk through it awake. The difference between the two groups is not luck, money, or age. It is whether they cross three inner thresholds: the threshold of attention, the threshold of identity, and the threshold of participation. In the next several minutes, I am going to open what the old traditions called the House of Three Doors, and show you exactly how an unseen possibility crosses over into your physical, tangible life. You will see why your age is not your limit, but your authority. And you will learn how to align your energy, your relationships, your purpose, and your material reality with the awakening already moving through you. Take a slow breath. Let us open the first door. Look back across the landscape of your life. For decades you carried weight. You built careers, raised families, solved everyone else's problems, kept the roof on, and the lights working. You learned to endure, to adapt, to measure yourself by the numbers the outside world respects. And then, somewhere past a certain age, an unexpected silence began to form behind all that noise. You sit in a quiet room, look at everything you built, and a question rises that you never dared ask before. Is this all there is? That silence frightens people because the world gave them the wrong explanation for it. The culture says that after 50, your job is to settle, lower your expectations, protect what you have, and prepare for a slow fade in energy and relevance. That message is one of the most damaging illusions ever sold to a human being. It exists to keep experienced souls quiet and compliant, because a machine built on youthful hustle has no idea what to do with mature wisdom that has stopped obeying. The older traditions teach the opposite. They say the first half of life is for building the vessel, the ego, the role, the resume, the household, the reputation. You learn the rules of the material world. But the second half of life is where real creation begins, when the person finally stops reacting to reality and starts shaping it from the inside. So when you feel lost, unmotivated, strangely detached from a life that looks fine on paper, it is not because you are running out. It is because the container you built has become too small for the consciousness now trying to move through you. Think of a tree in autumn. It does not panic when the leaves let go. It does not believe it is dying. It understands that releasing what the last season built is exactly how it protects the vitality it needs for a deeper root, and a fuller spring. Human beings, though, cling to dead leaves, old titles, old grievances, old roles that lost their life force years ago, and then demand to know why they feel so tired holding them up. The ones who resist this turning experience it as anxiety, as nostalgia, as financial and creative stagnation. They try to feel safe by clinging to who they used to be. But the ones who understand what is happening recognize the discontent for what it truly is. Not a loss of direction, but a summons, a sacred initiation, a hand on the shoulder telling you to stand and walk to the first door. Everything uncertain you have already survived was training for this exact moment. The intelligence that carried you through those storms is still here, and it is asking you to trust it one more time. Let me make this ordinary and specific, because the awakening rarely announces itself with trumpets. Picture a man who worked the same trade for 31 years. He retires on a Friday to everyone's congratulations, and by the third Tuesday he is standing in his garage at 10 in the morning, holding a tool he no longer has a reason to use, feeling something he cannot name and is ashamed to admit. He is not depressed in the clinical sense. He is standing at a threshold and calling it emptiness. Picture a woman whose youngest child just moved out. The house is finally quiet. The quiet she said for years she wanted. And instead of relief, a strange grief rises, because the role that told her who she was for 2 decades just walked out the door with a suitcase. Both of them are being told by the culture that this is the beginning of the end. Both of them are wrong. What they are actually feeling is the vessel cracking, and the light is trying to get in. The discomfort is not the problem. The discomfort is the doorway, and it will keep knocking until you answer it. To understand how reality actually changes, you have to understand the first law of awareness. Your attention is the currency of creation. Wherever it goes, life follows. You were trained to believe that action is the cause of results. Push harder, make more calls, work longer, force the outer world with sheer effort. Action has its place, but it is the last step, the visible shadow of something that already happened out of sight. Long before an outcome reaches your hands, it is selected in the field of your awareness. Consider the law of the observer. In the deep structure of matter, a field of unformed possibility stays in pure potential until awareness falls upon it. Before the moment of observation, a thing exists as a cloud of many possible states at once. The instant focused attention rests on one of them. That single possibility collapses out of the cloud and becomes a concrete, located event. What quantum physics glimpses at the edge of matter, the ancient mind already understood at the level of consciousness. The observer does not merely watch reality. The observer participates in selecting which reality becomes experience. So ask yourself honestly, where does your attention actually go all day? For most people, it is captured automatically by yesterday, by the news, by the bank balance, by the replay of an old argument, by the ache in the body. They wake and immediately pour their awareness into images of turmoil and lack. And by resting their attention, hour after hour, on the conditions of the past, they use the most creative instrument they possess to collapse the very same tomorrow. They are caught in a loop that feeds itself. The first threshold asks you to reclaim that attention. This is the door of focus, and crossing it makes you the guardian of your own awareness. When you pull your attention off an old fear, an old wound, a toxic story, or a habit of self-doubt, you cut the energy supply that keeps that condition alive in your life. You do not have to fight the old reality. In the world of consciousness, whatever you fight, you feed. You simply stop feeding it with your presence, and starved of attention, it begins to dissolve. Picture your attention as a single beam of golden light. Wherever it rests, something grows. Rested on lack, and lack multiplies. Rested on decline, and decline speeds up. But draw that beam back into the present moment and turn it toward the quiet potential of the life you are becoming, and the old reality loses its power to sustain itself. This is the first master key. To practice it, begin to audit what your mind feeds on. Several times a day, stop and ask, is the thing I am giving my attention to right now something I want more of in my life? If the answer is no, do not scold yourself for looking. Simply move the beam. Turn the light, gently and deliberately, back toward what you are building. Watch how this plays out in the first hour of an ordinary day. The alarm sounds. Before your feet touch the floor, your hand reaches for the phone, and in 90 seconds you have poured your freshest, most creative awareness into headlines of crisis, a message that irritates you, and a bank notification that tightens your chest. You have not even had water yet, and already the golden beam is fixed on everything you fear. Then you wonder, later, why the day feels heavy and the future feels closed. It is not a mystery. You told your creative instrument exactly what to build, and it obeyed. Now imagine the same hour lived awake. You wake, and before the world can capture the beam, you hold it for 60 seconds on one true thing. The breath moving in your chest. One thing you are genuinely grateful for. One clear image of the person you are becoming. Only then do you enter the day's information. You have not denied reality. The bills are still the bills. You have simply refused to hand the first and most powerful light of your day to the very conditions you are trying to leave. Do that for a week, and you will feel the difference in your body before you can explain it in words. This is not wishful thinking. It is stewardship of the one resource that shapes everything else. Reclaiming your attention is not a positive thinking trick. It is an energetic necessity, because every thought you repeat leaves a residue in the body. Each sustained worry, each rehearsed fear, each familiar grief sends a chemical and vibrational signal through your nervous system. Do it for years, and something quiet and dangerous happens. Your body becomes biologically at home in the emotions of your past. If you have spent decades worrying about security, feeling overlooked, carrying loss, or doubting your own worth, your nervous system has learned to treat those heavy states as normal, as safe, even when they hurt. And so, when your conscious mind finally reaches for peace, or abundance, or a new beginning, your subconscious quietly steers you back toward the familiar discomfort, because to the deep mind, familiar equals safe. This is why so many people change the whole outer picture, new job, new city, new relationship, and find themselves, within months, standing inside the exact same pattern. They changed the scenery and brought the same observer along. To break the loop, you have to learn to watch a thought without becoming it. When scarcity, or fear, or inadequacy rises, do not grab it as the truth about your future, and do not panic and run from it. Recognize it for what it is: an echo, a recording, playing on momentum from decades of repetition. And then, in that exact moment, ask the question that changes everything. Who is the one observing this thought? The instant you ask it, a space opens. You step back from the recording and return to the seat of pure awareness. You realize you are not the fear. You are the one who notices the fear. You are not the limitation. You are the space in which the limitation appears and, just as easily, disappears. From that seat, you are sovereign again. You decide where the light goes next. Nobody can make that choice for you, and no old program can override it once you remember that you are the one holding the switch. Be patient with your body while it clears. When you first withdraw attention from anxiety, the body may protest. It may manufacture restless thoughts or hunt for something new to worry about, the way a habit reaches for its old comfort. Do not read that as failure. Read it as withdrawal. The nervous system releasing an emotional dependency it held for years. Breathe. Feel your feet on the floor. Stay seated as the observer and let the storm pass through without renting it a room. Remember that your body listens to the stories you tell it. Tell it a story of lack, and it prepares to defend. Tell it a story of expansion, and it releases clarity and vitality. Choose the story that honors what you are here to become. There is a reason the same lesson keeps arriving in a new costume until you finally learn it. A woman leaves a job where she felt unseen, certain the problem was the company. 18 months into the next one, she is sitting in her car in a different parking lot, feeling the exact same invisibility, and she cannot understand how it followed her. It followed her because the observer who expected to be overlooked came along in the passenger seat and quietly arranged the evidence. A man ends a relationship, convinced the other person was the whole trouble, then finds himself, 2 years later, in a new relationship, replaying the identical argument with a different face across the table. The scenery changed. The recording did not. This is not a reason for shame. It is the most hopeful news there is, because it means the pattern was never fixed by fate or dictated by your history. It was sustained, moment by moment, by an attention and an identity you did not yet know you were holding. And whatever a person is holding, a person can set down. The day you stop asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" and start asking, "Who is the one that keeps expecting it?" the loop loses the hand that was feeding it. And for the first time, the pattern has nothing left to run on. Expect your body to argue with you at first, and do not mistake its protest for proof that you are failing. When you stop feeding an old anxiety, the nervous system that grew comfortable in it will come looking for its familiar fix. The way a body, used to a heavy habit, reaches for it at the usual hour. You may sit down to rest and feel a sudden, groundless urgency to worry about something. Anything. That is not a setback. That is the old chemistry draining out of you. In that moment, do not obey the urge, and do not fight it either. Place a hand on your chest. Feel the breath move. Name silently that this is only clearing, and let the wave crest and fall without giving it a story to justify itself. Each time you do this, the old loop gets a little weaker, and the seat of the observer gets a little stronger, until one day, the peace you had to fight for becomes simply the place you live. Directing your attention toward a new possibility is the essential first move. But attention alone will not carry a new life into physical form, and this is where sincere people stall for years. You cannot lastingly experience what you merely want. In the architecture of reality, you experience what you believe yourself to be. Here is why. If your attention reaches for freedom, peace, and vibrant purpose, but the identity underneath still feels like someone who is struggling, overlooked, and past their prime, those two frequencies cancel each other out. The deeper self always wins, because the world does not answer your wishes. Wishes are only thoughts. The world answers your state of being. Your identity is the vast web of quiet assumptions you hold about who you are, what you deserve, what is possible for you, and what is permitted for someone of your age and history. Most people set that identity in early adulthood, absorbing the fears of their parents, the verdicts of teachers, the ceilings of their era, and then carried that borrowed self for decades without once asking whether it was ever really theirs. The awakening moving through your life right now is dismantling false identities everywhere. Roles that once gave people their sense of safety, the title, the caregiving, the position, the physical prowess, are shifting and dissolving. If you mistake your role for yourself, that dissolution feels like terror. But if you understand the law of identity, you see it clearly. The removal of an old role is not a tragedy. It is the cleaning of a mirror. To cross the second threshold, you step in front of that mirror and claim a higher identity, before the outer world has offered you a single piece of proof. You stop waiting for circumstances to certify your worth, and you begin to assume the feeling, the posture, the inner stance of the person who already lives in the reality you intend to enter. Ask yourself in ordinary moments, how does the sovereign version of me walk into a room? How does that version speak, handle money, spend time, meet an unexpected problem? You do not wait for permission to feel steady and prosperous and useful. In the mechanics of higher consciousness, cause and effect run in reverse. You take the inner state first, and you let the outer, physical world catch up and reflect it back. So when you meet your own eyes in the mirror tomorrow morning, do not look for the marks of the struggle. Look into the eyes of someone who has navigated decades of real life to arrive at this exact threshold of mastery. Give yourself permission to outgrow the expectations you inherited. You owe no one a smaller version of yourself. The greatest gift you can offer the people around you is not your exhaustion, it is your aligned, awakened, unshakable presence. Let me show you how identity moves through the smallest, most ordinary moments, because that is where it actually lives. An opportunity lands in your inbox, a chance to teach, to consult, to lead something, to charge what your experience is truly worth. The old identity reads it in a fraction of a second and answers before you have consciously decided anything. Who am I to do that? It is probably too late for me. They will find someone younger, someone more current. Notice that none of those are facts. They are the voice of a self you inherited long ago, reporting the ceiling of a room you have already outgrown. Now feel how the sovereign identity meets the same email. It does not inflate or boast. It simply asks a cleaner question. Is this aligned with where I am going? It names a fair price without apologizing for the number. It replies within the day instead of letting the message age into a no. Same inbox, same person, two entirely different destinies. And the only thing that changed was which self answered. You are not waiting to become that person once the results arrive. You become that person first, in the way you answer the small things, and the results are simply the world agreeing with you a little while later. Let me speak directly to the season of life you are standing in. The commercial world runs on a relentless message that youth is the only time of value, beauty, and possibility. That message is a manufactured distortion built by a culture that prizes fast consumption over slow wisdom, and it has quietly convinced millions of experienced people to disqualify themselves right at the moment they became most powerful. Because the truth is the reverse. The years after 50 hold an advantage that youth cannot buy or fake or fast-track. You carry decades of lived experience, hard-earned resilience, sharpened discernment, and a real, working knowledge of human nature. You have survived storms that once looked like the end. You have watched trends rise and collapse. You have learned, through actual living, what matters and what is only noise. That depth is not a museum of memories to visit with nostalgia. It is the raw material of your highest creation, and the world is starving for it. Look around. In an age drowning in shallow information, there is a deep and growing hunger for grounded wisdom and mature guidance, for people who cannot be easily shaken by every panic and rumor because they are rooted in something real. That is you. Your purpose in this next chapter is not to recreate the frantic hustle of your 20s or the exhausting multitasking of your 40s. Your purpose now is to operate from leverage, from clarity, from elegance and sovereign choice, to do less and to have it matter more. Whether your next chapter looks like starting something of your own, mentoring others at a high level, putting your insight into words, mastering a craft, reorganizing your resources toward freedom, or simply living in unshakable daily peace, it begins the moment you stop reading your age as a decline and start recognizing it as your spiritual authority. So reframe the whole timeline. You are not at the end of a story, looking back. You are at the beginning of your wisdom era, looking forward, and every hard thing you overcame was the training that qualified you for it. Notice, too, how much energy returns to you the moment you stop seeking approval from people who were never able to see your vision. Your path runs between you and the source of your own awareness. Trust the quiet inner voice over the loud opinions of the crowd, and watch how much lighter the walk becomes. Consider what your years have actually made of you. Told plainly, 30 years of raising a family is 3 decades of leadership, negotiation, crisis management, and reading people faster than they can read themselves. And the world pays consultants handsomely for a fraction of that skill. A lifetime of a trade is a library of judgment that no newcomer can download, the kind of knowing that tells you what is wrong before the instrument confirms it. Years of caring for someone who was ill is a mastery of presence and endurance that most people never come close to earning. You did not spend those decades accumulating nothing. You were being forged. The tragedy is not that the culture undervalues these years. The tragedy is when you believe the culture and undervalue them yourself, retiring your genius right when it finally ripened. So take an honest inventory, not of your regrets, but of your competence, the storms you steered through, the people you carried, the problems you solved so quietly that no one thought to thank you. That inventory is not a memorial. It is a resume for the next chapter, and it is far more impressive than you have let yourself believe. Now we reach the third threshold, And this is where even sincere seekers stumble. They master attention. They practice visualization. They feel their new identity in quiet moments. And then they sit in the corridor of their own life, hoping a miracle will be delivered to the doorstep, while they stay physically cautious, closed, and waiting. This is the door of active participation, and it will not open from a chair. The physical world is the dense end of the spectrum of consciousness. For an unseen possibility to solidify into a tangible experience, it needs a bridge of real-world participation. But hear this clearly, because it is where people misunderstand. Participation does not mean returning to frantic effort or desperate struggle. It means taking deliberate, confident action that matches your new identity rather than your old fear. When you step through this door, you begin to meet the physical world in 3 distinct ways. First, you honor synchronicity. When your attention and identity align with a higher life, the field starts arranging meaningful coincidences, an unexpected call, a chance meeting, a sudden idea, an article that lands at the exact moment you needed it, an intuitive nudge to reach out to someone. A passive person misses these or dismisses them as random. A participating observer treats them as invitations and acts on them before the old caution can talk them out of it. Second, you make decisions from your future identity, not your past conditioning. When an opportunity or a new path appears, the old mind asks, "Can my cautious, tired self handle this?" The awakened observer asks a different question. Does this choice belong to the person I am becoming? You choose in the direction you are traveling, not the direction you came from. Third, you open your capacity to receive. So many people who spent their whole lives giving, caring, and carrying have a deep hidden block against receiving. Active participation means letting abundance, appreciation, support, and reward flow toward you without guilt, because receiving is simply the natural completion of giving, and a hand that will not open cannot be filled. To participate is to live with expectancy. You walk out your door each day, genuinely anticipating that life is arranging things on your behalf, treating every interaction as a possible doorway for new energy. And in the physical world, momentum is built by consistency. Small daily acts, reclaimed attention, acclaimed identity, one courageous step. Do not stay small. They compound, quietly. Then suddenly, they become the transformation that the people around you will one day call luck. Here is how the third door tends to open in a real life, and why so many people walk right past it. A name you have not thought of in years suddenly surfaces in your mind on a Sunday afternoon. The passive person shrugs it off as a random thought. The participating observer sends the message, "You crossed my mind, how are you?" And that small, aligned act becomes the conversation, that becomes the opportunity, that changes the year. Or you feel an inexplicable nudge to go to an event you would normally skip, walk in not knowing why you came, and meet the one person who opens the next door. The field was arranging the meeting the whole time. Participation was simply the willingness to show up when the old caution said, "Stay home." This is the part no visualization can do for you. You can hold the vision for a decade in perfect stillness, but a possibility waiting in the unseen needs a single physical yes to cross over. One email sent, one call made, one invitation accepted, one price finally spoken out loud. You are not forcing the outcome by acting. You are giving the outcome a bridge. And every time you honor the nudge instead of arguing with it, you teach the field that you are someone worth arranging things for. Across every continent, the old wisdom traditions noticed something that a wristwatch will never show you. Time does not only move in a flat line of ticking seconds. It also moves in rhythms, in seasons, in gateways, windows where the membrane between the unseen and the seen grows unusually thin. And one of the most enduring symbols of that crossing is the simple figure of the 8. Turn the number 8 on its side, and it becomes the lemniscate, the ancient sign of infinity. It pictures the unbroken flow between the invisible realm of spirit and the visible realm of matter, the exact place where cause meets effect, where potential crosses over and becomes experience. For thousands of years, people watched the late summer sky, marked the return of certain stars, and tied those moments to renewal and new beginnings. Popular culture has flattened much of that into shallow horoscopes, but the deeper principle it points to is real. There are seasons in which the threshold between what is possible and what becomes real is far more permeable than usual. Understand what such a gateway actually is, because this is where people give their power away. The gateway of the 8 is not a magical event that will rearrange your life while you sleep through your own awakening. It is a mirror, and mirrors only reflect. It amplifies whatever state of consciousness you carry into it. Walk in carrying fear, regret, and scarcity, and it will magnify your sense of instability. But cross the 3 thresholds first. Reclaim your attention, claim your identity, step into participation, and the same season becomes a catalyst, accelerating a shift that might otherwise have taken years. That is the real promise of the 8, and you do not need elaborate rituals or rigid formulas to receive it. You need only recognize that the current of this kind of season favors the leap over the slow, painful crawl. What once demanded years of trial and error can realign in a single moment of absolute inner conviction, not because the calendar is magic, but because you finally stopped arguing for your limitations long enough to let the higher reality through. Let the sign of infinity remind you of your own nature. You are eternal awareness moving through a temporary world. Your potential was never bounded by a birth year or a cultural stereotype. When you remember that, the fear of missing out quietly dissolves, because you understand at last that nothing meant for you can be lost by a soul that has decided to wake up. Think of the gateway the way you would think of a favorable tide. A tide does not row the boat for you, and it does not care which direction you point. But a sailor who understands the tide and sets out with it can travel in an afternoon what would cost days of exhausting effort against it. The season of the 8 is a tide in consciousness. Approach it asleep, drifting, arguing for your fears, and it will simply carry your fears farther and faster. Approach it awake, with attention reclaimed, and identity claimed, and one real step ready to take. And it carries your intention with the same effortless power. This is why 2 people can live through the exact same window of time and come out utterly transformed by it, or completely untouched. The gateway did not choose between them. Their state of consciousness did. So do not wait for the sky to rescue you, and do not fear that a single date holds your only chance. Every day you wake and cross the 3 thresholds, you create your own gateway, because the thin place between the possible and the real was never truly in the calendar. It was always in you. Let me bring all of this down out of the sky and into the three places you actually live: your money, your relationships, and your daily peace. Because a truth that never reaches the kitchen table is only decoration, and the Mago's law is not decoration. Begin with your finances. Restriction is rarely a problem of money itself. Money is a neutral medium, nothing more. Financial restriction is usually a symptom of stagnant energy, an unexamined identity, and blocked circulation. If your attention lives entirely on bills, fixed income, and the memory of past losses, your identity stays welded to scarcity, and scarcity is what you keep collapsing into form. So cross the three doors right here. In attention, stop rehearsing what is leaving your account and turn the beam toward what you already have and the value only you can create. In identity, stop seeing yourself as a victim of the economy or your age, and start seeing a steward of energy whose decades of skill and judgment hold real, exchangeable worth. In participation, take one tangible step: reorganize a habit, learn a modern skill, offer your experience in a new form, or simply change how you price your time. Prosperity is not begged for. It is aligned with, claimed, and then walked toward. Now your relationships. Many people past 50 feel an unexpected shift in their social world. Old friendships cool. Long-standing group dynamics lose their pull. Family roles rearrange. This is not the tragedy it feels like. It is a recalibration. As your awareness rises, you simply can no longer feed on gossip, chronic complaint, and low-frequency drama the way you once did. So again, cross the three doors. In attention, gently withdraw your energy from dynamics that require you to shrink so others stay comfortable. In identity, stand in your worth as someone who brings clarity, depth, and peace into a room instead of anxiety. In participation, move toward new conversations and new communities, and let people of a similar frequency find you, without forcing it, and without pleading for a seat at a table you have already outgrown. And your daily peace, the quiet ground under all of it. Your body is the temple through which consciousness tastes the physical world. Honor it with rest, with nourishment, with movement, not as a machine wearing down, but as an instrument, still tuning to a finer sound. And learn the master magnet of the whole system, appreciation. When you notice and honor even the smallest evidence of good already present in your life, you open the channel through which more can arrive. Gratitude is not a nicety. It is the current that carries the awakening from the invisible into the tangible, one ordinary, luminous day at a time. Let me draw the three doors together into a single picture you can hold, because separately, they are ideas, but together, they are a life. Imagine someone who spent 30 years as a bookkeeper and now believes that chapter is simply over. In attention, she stops replaying the layoff and the age of the faces in the last interview room, and she turns the beam toward a quiet truth. Half the small business owners she knows are drowning in numbers they do not understand. In identity, she stops calling herself a laid-off bookkeeper and starts standing as what she actually is, someone who can bring order and calm to another person's financial chaos. In participation, she does one small, real thing. She tells 3 people she is available, and she names a fair rate without flinching. Within a season, she is not looking for a job. She has quietly built something of her own, on her own terms, working fewer hours for people who are grateful. Nothing supernatural interrupted her life. She simply crossed 3 thresholds most people never even see, and the invisible reorganized itself around the new state she chose to hold. Now hear the same movement in a lonelier key. A widower assumes his best years and his best company are behind him. In attention, he stops rehearsing the empty chair. In identity, he stops introducing himself, even silently, as a man who is finished. In participation, he says yes to one invitation he would normally decline, walks into a room he does not want to enter, and finds a table of people who become, over months, a genuine second family. He did not force it. He simply stopped guarding the door and started using it. This is what the awakening looks like when it finally touches the ground. Not fireworks in the sky, but a real person, at a real table, living a chapter the world told them was no longer allowed. We have walked together through the mechanics of the greatest awakening of your lifetime. We opened the house of 3 doors and named the eternal law of the observer. Now the sacred responsibility of the choice belongs entirely to you, because no one, not I, not the season, not the sky, can walk through your doors for you. 2 paths stand in front of you as these words come to an end. On the first, you close this, return to the corridor of the familiar, and let your attention be recaptured by the noise of the world. You let your identity stay anchored to old roles and old ceilings, and you keep your participation cautious and small. Choose that, and the world keeps turning, and the awakening of your lifetime passes over you like a wave you watched from the shore, but never entered. No punishment, just a quiet, permanent almost. And understand what that first path really costs, because it is easy to underestimate. It does not cost you a dramatic failure. It costs you the version of your life that was actually available. The second business never started. The conversation never had. The room never entered. The identity never claimed. Not because you were incapable, but because on the day the door stood open, you decided it was safer to keep watching. The most expensive words a human being ever whispers at the end are not, "I failed." They are, "I could have." Or, in this very moment, in the private sanctuary of your own heart, you make a decision that no one can see and no one can take. You declare that the restlessness you felt was never a sign of decline. It was your invitation to wake up. You reclaim the golden beam of your attention from the past. You step in front of the inner mirror and claim the identity that is already yours. And you walk, deliberately, through the door of participation into a life that has been waiting the whole time for you to arrive. Remember this, and let it be the last thing that settles into you. Physical reality does not require the permission of the crowd to change. It requires only the absolute conviction of the observer. The doors are standing open. The gateway is thin. Step through with confidence and claim the reality that has been holding your place all along. Thank you for holding this space of awareness today. Walk in clarity. Walk in quiet strength. Stand tall in your sovereign authority, and trust the Master that has been living inside you from the very beginning. The world does not need a smaller version of you. It needs your wisdom, your peace, and your awakened presence, now, more than it has ever needed it before.